going to be elected into the Hall of Fame this year. What are your thoughts?
This is, to me, not as big of a shock as it was last week. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because they did change the way that the voting is constructed. So if you're asking how is Robert Kraft up for a spot in the Hall of Fame, well, it's up for contributor. And so there's a contributions to the game kind of a sidebar where he could get in. Now, I do feel like the voting this year kind of pitted those two against each other. Now, did they just end up stealing each other's votes? Maybe. We won't know unless the voting comes out. I do think it's crazy on its surface that he is not a Hall of Famer right now. He will eventually be a Hall of Famer. I think it is even more egregious. The Bill Belichick is still number one.
Yeah.
Of the most egregious of all time.
Without a doubt.
It superseded Terrell Owens because Terrell Owens was the number one snub of like, what are we doing in this Pro Football Hall of Fame? Yeah. But receivers, just like historically, sometimes receivers have to wait a little bit longer than quarterbacks and even offensive linemen and defensive guys there as well. So I'm not as bent out of shape as I was last week about it, but I'd be lying if I said that I don't think that it creates an undercurrent for the Patriots going into this game. Does it create a little bit of motivation? I think so. I think if most guys on that team did not play for Bill Belichick. Well, I'm not saying most. Say a lot of guys on the Patriots team did not play for Bill Belichick. Yeah. So there might not be that same connection there. But you see him all over the halls, all over the walls. You see him holding up trophies. Yeah. You feel a part of him. You feel a part of that organization. Mike Vrabel, of course, played for and won Super Bowls with Bill Belichick. Does he come in with an extra chip on his shoulder? I think so. Yeah. Everybody gets their paycheck signed by Robert Kraft. Do they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder? Yeah, and I think that if you're on the Patriots, if you're Mike Vrabel, it is the easiest way to garner support around your team by saying nobody likes us. Yeah. Like everybody hates us. And
you're the universal villain.
Yes.
Like that's just what I think of.
And lean into it like a rallying cry. Now, in the year that the United States of America is celebrating its 250th birthday, do I think it's kind of fitting that the team that represents the United States, not represents the United States of America, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the mascot represents what America stands for. Do I think that there's some, maybe some team of destiny-ish things that are going on there? Maybe so. However,
Gerhard's
as you said,
on the superstition.
I mean, somewhat superstition, but it just reminds me because they are going to wear a patch. Yeah. The 250th anniversary patch, it's just going to look cleaner on the Patriots uniforms than it will on anybody else because they are the Patriots. They wear red, white, and blue. But people will say the Houston Texans also wear red, white, and blue too. So, but I do think that there is an added sense of camaraderie if you're in New England, because I think this is a guy that a lot of people like, a lot of people respect. Yeah. And now he is on his third coach that is in a Super Bowl. Let me think about that. Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick. And then he had to make the tough decision last year, fire Gerard Mayo, who was once one of his captains of his teams, and then say, hey, get him out. Yeah. Mike Vrabel is in, and now they're back in the Super Bowl. So I'm not as bent out of shape. I don't know if I understand it, but it can be a rallying cry in my opinion.
Last question before we move on to the actual game itself. Do you think that this was partially because of there's been some growing animosity between Belichick and Robert Kraft? Obviously, Belichick earlier this season, we talked about how they barred the Patriots from accessing practice and stuff like that, and the scouts. No Patriots, anything on the walls inside the UNC facility. Do you think these voters were like, well, we didn't let Bill Belichick in, so we can't really let Robert Kraft in because of this growing animosity between the two? Then there might be this perception of bias, so to speak.
A bit, but let me give you the other guys that were on the ballot. Yeah, Roger Craig, Ken Anderson, and L.C. Greenwood were the players that were under this contributor list with Bill Belichick because, like I said, the voting changed. I don't know if much more of a better contributor to football. No disrespect to Mr. Craig, Mr. Anderson, and Mr. Greenwood. No disrespect to any of them. I don't know if their contributions to football supersedes Bob Kraft's contributions to football. Do I think that there might be a sense of I'm not going to vote one in, so I don't vote any of them in? There might be some of that. I think you have to look at those individual people. that made those votes. But keep in mind what started this whole thing last week was the notion that Bill Polian basically submerged he basically like had the undercurrent and telling people not to vote because of Spygate and because of Deflategate and all the gates that the Patriots are allegedly said to be a part of. Did some of that ring true for the voters that did not have Bill Belichick on their ballot? Does some of that also ring true for Robert Kraft?
Yeah.
Because he's like, I know they're not saying that he was over there setting up cameras in the wrong spots or deflating footballs, but he was the top dog, the top person on the totem pole for the organization that did. Maybe guilty by association, possibly so. I think there has to be something to do with that.
But you still, it goes back to what I was saying about Belichick. And I said on the show, like, I grew up not liking Belichick, but I also am a fan of sport. I can accept greatness. I grew up because I was a Cowboys fan and I didn't like seeing them win all the time. So that's the only reason why I didn't like him. But now that he's done and in the college ranks, talking about Bill Belichick, like, obviously I can appreciate greatness.
Yeah, and I think that there's to your point about the growing animosity, and there's growing animosity between these two individuals anyways. Robert Kraft last week tried to quell a lot of that. I'll give you his direct quote. He was basically saying, whatever perceptions may exist about any personal differences between Bill and I strongly believe Bill Belichick's record and body of work speaks for themselves. And so he basically says he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Is there an element of, I know Tom Brady won't be eligible in 2028. Yeah. I do think that this could have a kind of cool ending if they change up the voting once again, or they change up the process of voting once again and make it to where they have to wait 4 years instead of 5.
Yeah.
And Brady becomes eligible next year. Is there a chance that you can put in the 3 figureheads of the dynasty all at the same time?
That would be pretty cool.
There's a possibility for that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rob Gronkowski is also going to be up next year as well. So if you can have
the
4 heads of the greatest dynasty of football, then all of this might be, hey, the football guys are just, are playing this music kind of beautifully.
Yeah.
And you might be mad on the front end. It could have a happy ending on the back.
I forget. Is Vinatieri in the Hall of Fame?
I think he's all. I have to go back and check. I don't know if he's in or not. I know he was.
That would be the 5 right there.
Yeah, because then you'd have Gronk was kind of the back half.
Yeah.
Because there's
Vinatieri
2 rings. Oh yeah. Yes. Let me pull up Vinatieri in the Hall of Fame. I thought he was in, but I'm not
I thought
sure.
I remember seeing that he was in.
He's a finalist for this year. He's a finalist for this year.
I'd just wait. Just wait and just send them all in at the same time.
That would be really cool.
That would be cool. That's the only way you can make the best out of this situation. But it has to be in Brady's first year, because if Brady isn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, then honestly, I don't care who gets elected after that.
Well, you're making him. Yes. To me,
what meaning does it hold anymore when you have the GOAT? And honestly, I'd like to, real quick before we go to break, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Who is the true GOAT? Is it Belichick or is it Brady?
The further we get away from the dynasty, I happen to think that this is a players' league. Yeah. I happen to think that this is that, and even Bill Belichick says this all the time. He says coaches can scheme up, and the smartest coaches, I think in football, the smartest coaches are in the NFL.
Yeah.
I do think, though, it's a players' league. And the fact that Tom Brady went to Tampa.
Yeah, he won another Super Bowl without him.
And then won a Super Bowl, and we saw how much Bill Belichick kind of, treaded water, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think it is a lot easier to say the guy that takes the football for 70 to 80 plays a game, he was the guy. It's just hard to say that given what Brady looked like in the first 3 Super Bowls, where he wasn't the catalyst at all.
Right.
It was a strong defense and a strong running game. He grew in to being the GOAT of the greatest quarterback of all time through his time with Bill Belichick. So the early years Belichick, the late years Tom Brady, and once again they have a chance to add another Lombardi.